Hello, everyone, and welcome to NASCAR Studio 43. I'm Jonathan Meerman here with Alex Weaver and a very special guest, Denny Hamlin. Denny, Darlington's coming up. We have a very special car underneath this car cover, but before we unveil that, how excited are you to head down to Darlington and celebrate 7 decades in NASCAR?
It's awesome. I love the racetrack. I love Throwback Weekend. It's been one of the greatest additions to NASCAR in the last 10 years, in my opinion. It's just great to see the tributes to legendary drivers and specific times and eras. So I love being a part of it, and obviously winning both races last year was a good bonus as well.
Denny, Darlington is all about, for the fans, honoring legends and kind of diving into NASCAR's history, but this one has a unique history for you. Kind of explain that a little bit.
Yeah, this one is very special to me. This is a throwback to my very first race car. This is something that we thought about, and especially with the era that they're celebrating this season. This is what I was doing back in 1997, was racing this car around. It was a 4-cylinder that we were racing around Langley and Southside Speedway. So very excited to to show off the car that is throwing back to my past.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's pull the cover off. That's what
Love
you
it.
say.
Let's do it.
All right, we'll go on you.
All right, let's do it. Looks very familiar to me.
What kind of memories does this bring back? I know we were noticing a couple of unique things on the race car. So what kind of memories does this bring back, and what are some unique things that you love about it?
Well, oddly enough, I've always driven a purple and white number 11, whether it be in go-karts, race cars. We made this paint scheme back then very simple because we planned on crashing a lot. So you wanted to have it pretty basic back then with your paint scheme. But it's got the Chesterfield trailer and hitch on it, which is very special to me. This is my father and I's business that we had. It kind of funded our racing for so many years. And that's a tough job in itself. So, for me, this is our family car. This is the very first race car I ever owned. And it's special to me that FedEx is able to give us this canvas to throw back to my very first race car.
Now, back in the day, with your family and growing up in racing, you kind of grew up balling on a budget, so we say. How does that affect how you model the car and how you paint it, and why the white is the way it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's, to me, it was, we wanted it very basic, and, for whatever reason, Bill Elliott was always my favorite driver, and so we always had the number 11 for that reason, and just gravitated towards the purple. I know that my dad's, one of his best friends was a painter back then, and he was like, hey, man, I got this beautiful color that you should try, and for no particular reason, we're like, yeah, the purple looks good, so we did that. It had the orange stripe on it, so it's so crazy how it all worked out, and I get to race this car again.
All right, what do you say we come back up on stage and take some fan questions? And while we're waiting for fans to send those questions in via Twitter, we're also live on NASCAR.com and YouTube, streaming on Twitter as well, so get those questions in. But question for you is, we've seen the car, but what can you tell us about the helmet and the fire suit? Because it's an interesting story, behind that as well, because like you said, you had to make sure you guys were selling trailers and hitches so you guys could afford to race.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we did the best with what we could, for sure. It was really my suit that you'll see is really my go-kart suit. It was the one that I took right from racing at Unveil Motor Raceway to just racing here at Southside. So that was all the same. Michael Hall did the helmet. He always did my helmets back in the day for my go-kart days, and so we brought that over to this car as well. So it's very exciting to see this car, and in the real thing, in the replica, everything that I have sitting in my garage at home. It's identical. The font and everything is perfect. So it's man, this car is very special.
Now, you were reunited with that car, and like you said, you have it in your garage. How did you get that car back in your garage?
Yeah, it was an interesting story. Of course, everyone knows I have the best boss in the world, Joe Gibbs, but we sold that car. It was a great race car. We'd won a lot of races with it and won the track championships at Southside and Langley with it. But we sold it, and once I got into the Cup Series, that car had made its rounds into a few different hands, and they actually contacted my mom about, hey, do you think Denny wants this car back? And at the time, I didn't appreciate the history or anything of it. So I was just like, I really don't. I was like, I don't even know where I'm going to put it. Like, I've got this, at the time, very moderate house that I've got no garage space. I don't know where I'm going to do with the thing. So I was like, no, I really don't want it. Just tell them to go ahead and sell it. Well, they sold it, but they sold it to Joe Gibbs. And he bought the car and restored it for me and gave it back to me as a gift.
So I can't beat that at all. But let's pivot back to Darlington. Your stats there are pretty incredible. 2 wins. The last time, or before last year, the last time you won was in 2010. Oddly enough, that was the last time that FedEx was on your car at Darlington.
Yes.
So some things maybe lining up there. But 7 top 5s, that's 58% of your starts there. You're in the top 5. 83% of the time you're in the top 10 because you have 10 of those. What is it about that place that fits your driving style and that makes you so keen at that track?
It's hard to say what it is. It really fits my style at that track. But, even looking at Xfinity and the success we've had there, it just fits everything that I do as a driver. The track configuration fits that perfectly. So it's where I got my very first start with Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series in 2004, I believe. And I just always had a knack for that racetrack. So we're very excited about going there in 2 weeks.
Now, Tom on Twitter wants to know, do you feel, because this is your car and your number and your history, do you feel any added pressure to win in this car?
Absolutely. I mean, I always said that, people that, will see this next Sunday won't understand where it came from, right? It's not going to be something that they saw on their favorite driver years and years ago. But this is, the people from Virginia and the local short tracks will recognize this car, and it's going to be awesome to see their reaction when they see it.
So a lot of the Cup drivers now, there's a bit of a short track renaissance going on at the top level. How big of a deal is it for you to, use this as an avenue to show kids who might be out there at Langley running a mini stock right now that, hey, I was there, I was in your shoes, I was, busting my butt to get to the racetrack, and now I'm able to put my old paint scheme on my car and run a Cup race.
Yeah, I mean, we were very fortunate. A lot of things worked out perfectly for me to get to the position I'm in now. Never take that for granted by any means. But yeah, it can happen. I mean, it really can. And we've seen an influx of young drivers come into the sport over the last 2 to 3 years now that are having a lot of success. So it's able to happen as long as you're out there and you're performing at your best. And you don't always have to have the greatest equipment to do that. You just need to impress with the equipment that you have, and the doors will open.
And what made you want to run this scheme? Why this one?
Well, this was actually a surprise to me. I didn't know that this was going to be my throwback scheme. I'd asked FedEx time and time again, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And we threw out a few ideas, and then they just kind of went silent on me for a little while, and all of a sudden they sent me an email and said, this is what we're going to do.
Pretty good surprise.
So this is a great surprise for me, and love that they decided to do this, and it's very special for me and my family. It's not just about me. This is our family car. This is the one that we spent so many hours working on in the garage.
Kyler wants to know, aside from this one, what's your #1 throwback scheme you would love to race in the future?
Oh gosh, there's so many of them. It's really hard to think of one straight off the bat, but we always try to kind of play off the number 11s. Ned Jarrett, that's one that comes to mind right away that we haven't done with the 11 yet. We've done a lot of Bill Elliott, Dale Waltrip schemes, Cale Yarborough, but yeah, it's something with the Jarretts would be awesome because he was such a great competitor and champion.
And how different is Darlington for you drivers out there? It's kind of a different experience because it is a throwback and the fans get really into it. Is that exciting for you guys to go down there?
It is. Just seeing everyone dressing up and the cars and everything, it just feels cool. And you see the cars on the racetrack that, like, you just remember watching races and being able to recognize this car or that car right off the bat, right? And now there's so many different sponsors, it's hard to really identify. But to bring those cars back, those iconic cars that people used to see back in the day is awesome to see.
William wants to know, is there a teammate competition about best throwback at JGR? And what do you think your teammates will think of this?
It's going to be awesome. My teammates have seen this car, the ones that have been by the house. And so this is super special to me. And all my teammates have great throwback schemes, but obviously we want to have ones that mean a lot to us. And this one for sure should top that.
All right, another viewer wants to know, what part of racing have you enjoyed the most so far in your career?
You know, there's been a lot of, highs and different moments that have been great, but just knowing that I can compete at this level, that's been the biggest, thing that I've taken away is that, when I think about, the 31 wins that we've had during the course of my career, it's been against some of the greatest drivers that the sport's ever seen. I mean, facing, Jimmy Johnson head to head in his prime and was a tough battle. I mean, we battled for championships year after year, and it was a tough grind. And nowadays, with the new guys coming in and still some of the old guys performing at a crazy high level, it's good to know that you can go out there and compete.
Some of the best drivers in the sport love Darlington, but they don't get to win there. You've done it twice. Why is that place, so kind of storied and the perfect fit for Throwback?
Well, I think it's, when you look at old tapes of NASCAR, most of the highlights are from Darlington. I mean, the cars flying over the wall, how narrow the racetrack is. You got Cale Yarborough wheeling it, that in-car camera of him wheeling it around the wall. So it is NASCAR history, and I feel like that's the perfect place for Throwback Weekend.
All right, well, Ricky wants to know, and this may be a question that's on a lot of drivers' minds, what is it going to take to beat the Big Three at Darlington?
Well, we were able to do it last year. They were still the Big Three when you think about it now. They just put a name on them. But those guys, they perform at a high level every single week, and it's amazing what they're able to do. But we're just going to lean on what has made me successful there year after year, and hopefully it's enough to get a W.
You're a competitive guy. I mean, obviously, if you make it from a street stock to where you are now, you can't say quit. You have to have a chip on your shoulder. Does seeing that and hearing all this talk about the Big Three, does that kind of motivate you to put that in victory lane?
It does, and we're motivated every single week to perform at a high level, and I'm working harder now than I ever have to try to continue to do that. So it's tough out there nowadays. It's definitely tough, and you got to have all your ducks in a row and perform and execute on every single facet of the race to get a good finish. And there's ups and downs to that, and we never really had a down moment of my career. It's always been successful and winning races every year, and really for the last couple months where we've kind of faltered a little bit, it's a bit humbling, but it makes you work harder to get back to the top.
And you can't ignore the style at Darlington too. So we have a lot of viewers asking if you have any throwback gear besides your fire suit and your helmet that you're going to wear. We're going to see a hat. You're going to rock new facial hair.
I will. Listen, it's hard enough for me to grow. This is like 2 weeks worth at least. So I'm not a very hairy person when it comes to that. So I can't really grow anything throwback as far as that's concerned. And I definitely don't want to throw back to any of the clothes I used to have back in the day. That was torture enough.
Little haircuts, maybe?
No,
Frosted
yeah,
tips?
Yeah. It was not good, my style back then. So I just assume live in the present, not look back to the past and anything that involves style.
Now, we know FedEx is very peculiar over their paint schemes. They're very picky. How cool is it that they let you run this, or they came up with this paint scheme? Because, I mean, like you said before, it's very ironic that your colors back in the day are their colors now. Yeah, it's
I dreamed about this for a long time. I mean, the first time I met Joe Gibbs when I was 12 years old, I told him I'd hope to drive for him one day, and 12 years later exactly, I did. So to be with a company like FedEx that gives you this canvas to show off your past is great. They do a lot of different charitable things with their NASCAR Care or their FedEx Cares program. And we run a couple of those paint schemes each year, so really proud to be with them and everything that they do to help serve their community. And not only that, now they're helping throw back to my past and my family.
Fans are also digging on the shoes online as well. But we'll end on that note. Denny, thanks for coming in. Alex, thanks for joining us here.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you guys watching. Take another look at this car. It's spectacular. And don't forget to watch the race September 2nd at Darlington, 6 p.m. on NBCSN.